Welcome, everyone. My name is Risa Shimoda with the River Management Society, and you are at Messaging for Those Who Don't Read Signs and Drown. So kind of a bold title, but hopefully it's pretty clear about what we're going to be talking about today. I'd like to just share who else is here with us. Oh, before we do, feel free, this is not a large group, so feel free to chat, share in the chat. But keep yourself muted now if you can. But then if you have a question, please just chime in. We'll have an hour, but I think there'll be plenty of time for discussion. This is more for sharing than it is for preaching. So our topic is, sharing our best practices, what you've heard, what you've learned, what you might have a question about the risks on rivers, and particularly those who are not enthusiasts, not experts, those who might not know what they don't know, and how it is that we can most effectively reach out to them to give them the information they need, and then also, catch them as they're about to embark on a trip so that they're as safe as possible. So I introduced myself, and Angie Furman, you want to just say hi, Angie, and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Angie Furman, the River Training Center Coordinator for RMS, and I'm in Southern Oregon. Beautiful sunny day here. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. And Lelia?
Hello, everyone. I'm Lelia Mellon, and I work for the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And I've been working with RMS for a little over a year to help get this set of webinars and program going. We changed our name this year, and I guess I'll get into this in a minute. So I was going to introduce Charlie really briefly and then let him talk much more. That Charlie is a well-known, nationally known whitewater safety expert with 45 years of running rivers. And he has been active in both the American Canoe Association, American Whitewater, and being an expert witness and documenter of accidents on water. So he is a great fount of knowledge, and we welcome him to be with us today as we talk about signage and river safety. Charlie, do you want to say anything?
No, that was a pretty good introduction. The main thing that I'd add is that I maintain the American Whitewater Association accident database, which is online on our website, AmericanWhitewater.org. You just have to go to the safety page and click through to the database. It has over 2,000 reports of accidents and near misses collected, mostly by me in correspondence, but with a few other major contributors. And we do a certain amount of analysis about it, but for me, the important thing about it is the individual stories, trying to figure out how things happen. And certainly a lot of the accidents you see are very dull. Somebody isn't wearing a life jacket, somebody gets into a section of river that they had no idea they were going to get into. But a lot of it is, we're looking for the complexities, and we're looking for ways to prevent it. Now, I focus a lot on experienced boaters, but certainly, the problems that people who are managing rivers and dealing with the general public problems are the same.
Right. Oh, folks are doing this all by themselves, unprompted, but if others would like to say who you are and where you're from in the chat, that would be great. And also, Lilia, many people probably know this, but could you just give a brief just description of how RTCA helps groups the way you've been helping RMS?
Yes, I will. And then I'll go into more about my role exactly here. So I'm with this outreach program at the National Park Service, again, called the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And we work with community groups, agencies, anybody really, who apply for our time to help achieve their outdoor recreation and conservation goals. So we're national, staff, you can look at our website, nps.gov/RTCA, to find out how you can get work with us. And the idea is that we work with a group for a year or two, and then help you achieve your goals, and then set you free, and hopefully you have great success when you move on to other projects. So what we're doing here, in general, is that we started this group. We have a new name. We had just changed it to the River Management Roundtable. We had started as the State River Managers Group. And the idea is to network amongst each other and learn from examples, to see if we can help each other ask questions, know who your fellow counterparts are, whether within your state or outside. You don't have to be a state agency to be here. We welcome any level, nonprofits to outfitters, state, feds, whoever. And really just trying to have a cohort of river managers who can support one another. So as you see on the slide, it says our new name is the River Management Roundtable. And please let other people you know be aware of what we're doing every month. And we'll talk more about this now, but we're actually meeting twice a month now. Different topics. You can suggest others that might be of interest to you. There you go.
Well, great. So let's go back to that slide of the different topics that we thought might be interesting to share about. And again, we don't have the best words of wisdom here. So we're hoping that everyone or most of you on the call will share about these, and there might be other topics as well. But there's 6 topics of what works in your experience for either your organization or those you have known about, not just about your organization or your programs, but about the risks and the importance of safe practices on rivers. I believe that a combination of media is probably the most effective, and so you probably have experience with different types of media working, better or worse. So, and also as we begin to have more of a discussion, then this is a presentation. If we could see you, if you could turn your cameras on, that'd be great. So the first one is website content. This is probably the most traditional, most static, and you can provide your information in the most organized fashion because you're creating it. You have a strategy, media strategy, who you want to reach. Is there anyone who would like to share? You could just unmute to chat too, but you could just unmute and share like particularly good websites or particularly effective tools on your websites that you have used to speak to safety to your audiences. The ones that are up there, there's a Potomac River Safety Committee. There's a group of people and they do signage, they provide maps, so forth. And then there's some guy who he has a website. He's a life jacket advisor. How to float the river like a pro. And then the Huron River Water Trail posted the Argo cascades, whitewater cascades next to the reservoir. Would anyone like to share what they have experienced, good or bad? No good examples or notable examples of safety websites?
Lisa, it's Jared Becker. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah.
I don't know if I can share my screen or not, but the Snake River Fund just updated our website to contain a Google map that's viewable on mobile applications as well. And it has pins, drops and color coded for boat ramps that are open, walk-in access and things like strainers and such. And Google Maps allows you to put pictures in and also, place pins that people can then use on their maps. And so I'm not sure if I can share my screen or not, so people
Let's
can see
see.
what it
I
looks
think
like.
you should be able to down by where your microphone. Oh, Angie, you should be able to share. Yeah.
Look at this.
Down by
Yeah, I'm gonna
microphone
just
and camera. The
end my
screen.
sharing.
Yeah. The little screen with the line through it.
That's not what you want to see.
No, that's good. Oh,
There you
Can
go.
you see my QuickBooks, or can you see my?
yeah, map.
We don't want to see your
Or,
QuickBooks.
or we see an image.
You see river conditions.
Okay, well, I see QuickBooks on my screen, so that's not what you want to see. But anyway,
We're seeing
but yeah.
the river stuff.
Okay, so on this screen over here, you can see, there's icons, and you can zoom in and zoom out, various icons for boat ramps and things. And if I zoom in and I click this hazard, it shows this picture of this channel spanning strainer,
Right.
and so people can send us pins and things like that, and we can update it. So it's just a different way of putting it.
That's awesome. So you have the map that's there all the time. What do they send you? And then who deals with the receipt of that information?
So just give me 1 second to see if I can get out of this. Did my screen share stop?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So people, drop us pins all the time via, text message, pictures, and then here in the office, we try to update them as quick as we can. Same thing with, boat ramp conditions, whether it's snowed in or it's clear, early season conditions, are out there. So it's user generated, but we have to manage it. We don't have a way for people to drop pins to the map themselves, but they can put it on their own personal Google Maps.
And Jared, can you tell how many people then look at the map and look at the information?
We can, mostly through, I'm sure we could through some Google Analytics, but through social media, we can see, because we'll usually update it, and we'll see that, it's gotten, and whether it's like an Instagram story that it's gotten, 200 views or whatever. So we can see it that way.
Cool. That's nice. Okay. Thanks. Anybody else do anything like that?
John Newman was just nice and posted your site, Jared.
Right.
And then Allison Bullock. What's on here, Allison? A Coast Guard auxiliary?
We can't hear you, Allison.
You need to open your mic.
Can't hear you, Allison. Oh no, she can't hear us.
Oh, no. Can't.
Sorry, I am here.
There we go.
I'm on the phone using this, and so I'm trying to go back and forth. I use the Coast Guard Auxiliary for some of the larger water projects that I've been working on, the Tennessee River. It's relevant to the Ohio, Mississippi, a lot of the larger waterways that have motorized boating navigation on them. It's really an excellent tool for especially learning how to interact with boating, traffic, things like that.
When you say interacting with boating traffic, like knowing, becoming aware of what might be in the river, or no rules that you might not.
Rules of the river, just awareness for river safety, like, hey, barges are really quiet. You're not going to know they're coming up on you, or, boaters should keep to the, paddle boaters should stay to the shoreline, areas and avoid the navigation channel, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of material about, life jackets and things like that on there as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
And Allison, am I remembering that the Ohio River even tells you, you can look at a live map and see where the barges might be. So you can actually plan that in real time.
So yeah, Russ Clark and Andrea Ireland are working on that project for RTCA up in the Cincinnati area, and they have integrated the traffic navigation for the barges and the shipping vessels with their interactive GIS system that you can, and there's an app you can actually use. If you're out boating, you can download this app and use it, and you'll see real time where boat traffic is related to you and where you are. So you can see what's coming and, you know, how to avoid it. It's really innovative.
That seems so important for, you know, for little boats, not having a sense that big boats go really fast and have a hard time turning. You know, unless you're experienced with it, I could see where that would be so important or helpful. And this website is really great. I hadn't seen it. It's geared, it looks like it's geared towards people too. I mean, it seems official, but it looks like it's not like a military kind of thing. It looks pretty friendly, informative.
Yeah. And these are retirees primarily from military service that are part of an auxiliary, a local group, or they have groups in various areas along major waterways, and they're available to do educational workshops or come to events and to help with these types of projects that we're working on. So we really should be working more collaboratively
Cool.
with them. Yeah.
You know, there's a caller number 1 who I'm not sure who it is, but we're getting some side noise from you. If you could mute while you're not speaking, that would be awesome. If there are any other websites you can think of, please volunteer them. Angie, maybe we could go to the next topic. I think this is a big one. Probably have, if you work for an agency, friends groups or your own agency website. I don't know if you have like a outpost or a specific river that your agency has a Facebook account for, or Instagram or Twitter. This seems like a great way that, you know, projects can be shared. There's some very innovative and creative person doing some training actually online, safety training. AW has the, you know, probably the richest history of data or stories, as Charlie has been the curator of those, but they have a great site as well.
But there's also a complete list of, well, I don't think it's complete because people are always exploring new stuff, but virtually every whitewater river in the country, and it gives information, water levels, etc. And that's used by a lot of people in the boating community, and it's a good way. It's also a good way to get, if you have particular information, you can contact AW and they'll get the information out to the river pages. This is particularly, you know, we've used it some this year for closures of various kinds, or when events are canceled.
Right. Say, Charlie, when you're not talking, could you keep yourself on mute, please?
And so, Risa, you said that some people are doing trainings online via social media, which is awesome. Is that new in the last year when we all went to online, or had it been a growing field on its own? Do you know?
I don't know that it had been used extensively. I just found this fellow whose picture I have, and I can't even tell you the name of his company, but training, doing virtual trainings, I think became a thing last year because it had to be. And for most organizations and companies, it had been one element of the toolbox and became the toolbox. You know, so, you know, as a result, those who were doing the trainings before anyway probably got lots better at it. Just as an organization, we don't do all trainings, but we did dozens, and we've done dozens now of, online events.
Right.
So I
And
see some,
I've been seeing it in addition to rivers, I've been seeing it in winter mountain hiking and, introduction to that kind of thing, where, like you say, people couldn't get together for their classic training or class, and it was a nice alternative.
so Liz put the Farmington River Steward org URL in the chat. So Liz, could you describe, because you guys get lots of non-enthusiasts, are you addressing, or do you think there'll be some messaging that addresses those who are not enthusiasts? Because the toughest group is for people who don't know what they don't know, again, don't know you can look up safety information, like how on earth do you reach them?
Right. That is the question.
Mhm.
This is a new campaign that we're working on. We hired Waterwords That Work and another local communications firm to help us improve our outreach to everyone, really. And we're trying to figure out ways to reach people before they get to the river, in things about like places to go where it's not too crowded, when the best place, what the best place to go is, what the best time is to go, what the best practices are for all different kinds of users, and to, hopefully get the message out that, we're seeing increased use, and it's more important now more than ever to have safe practices and that sort of thing. So it remains to be seen what we actually get out there. That's why I put the address up on the chat. So I'm just inviting folks to come and see what we end up getting out there, and happy to share what we have learned with Waterwords That Work and others about different techniques to use in reaching all different skill levels, and just, the folks hopefully before they even get to the river.
Are you working on, or have you discussed how to change your outreach to increase the number of people who are engaged?
Yeah. It's a big challenge. It's trying to track down. I know Lindsay Larson is here too from the Housatonic. We're working on a project to try to figure out how to spread that net farther, to engage more people, folks who aren't necessarily tuned in to all the social media and stuff that's related to the river. How do you alert them to the fact that it's out there and that information is out there? That's the big challenge.
It's like the person who is about to purchase their tube for $5 at Walmart.
Right, exactly. Yeah, maybe QR codes on different things. That's one of the things too on the Farmington, is we're having to replace our information kiosks all along the river. And one of the thoughts was to potentially put a QR code on the new kiosk boards that would link folks to websites or to other social media. And maybe that might pull a few more other people in, the people who happen to notice the kiosk boards and that sort of thing. But you could also put that QR code on other things as well.
And the QR code is going to your website? The
website and potentially other, I'm not as savvy about the internal workings of all this. But yeah, to link to the website and other ways of messaging. Just hopefully it's an easy, it's not a hurdle for people to jump into the information. Real easy link.
right. Yeah. So, and I think critical is what is it that's intriguing about what you think what the person's gonna learn, so that they're interested in checking it out.
Right. You got to get
Right.
some good hooks.
They have to be motivated to find out something if they don't think that they need to know. You know what I mean? Unless they're curious about QR codes. So
Yeah.
that's, I'm not telling you anything you don't know about what the challenge is, but it's like the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like a shotgun approach. I hate using that term, but getting, as many different ways out there as you possibly can, not relying on any one particular method, but getting as many methods out
Right.
there as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And for the Farmington folks, do they use Facebook? Do they use other social media besides Facebook?
Yeah, I think Instagram is one of them. And like I said, we're just about to unveil all this. So I think that this communications firm that we're working with is probably going to unfold other things that we haven't been using. So stay tuned. I will try to help, definitely through that River Steward website, it'll be evident. But also I will share with RMS any good techniques that seem to come up during this process.
Thanks.
It reminds me, in a different project of mine, somebody actually said TikTok has some great educational information on it. It happened to have been a forester talking about what he was learning about in the woods, but it's not just teenagers doing whatever they want to do on it. It was pretty interesting. So Karita added that REI has a whole lot of good getting started videos, including intro to kayaking. So that's a nice one. And then also she linked to the firm that Liz just talked about, Waterworks, that Words That Work, if you want to find out more about them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's head to the next topic. Let's see, and if other things occur to you, please chime in. So on-site signage, this is everyone's favorite, not really, topic. Many of us have probably worked on a signage project and wonder, what would be better? What are others? What are other options? I think for me anyway, to start off is that a sign, you spend, what is it? You spend 7 seconds looking at a billboard. If you're walking past a sign like some of the ones here that might be posted at a park, you don't spend much time looking at it. If you're not curious or interested, you would never read the one over on the left. You wouldn't take the time for it. So does anyone have examples of signage that they particularly love, think is great, or any that they found that they wish they'd done it differently? And this is, we've identified a couple of topics here, but they could be others, but related to being on the river. Opinions about signs.
I find the one in the middle very funny. It looks sort of like a headstone,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like dangerous not to swim. It almost reads, I mean, it's supposed to probably be not to swim, but it almost makes it sound like you're supposed to swim.
Angie, that's yours. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I actually found that in a different country, that from some other
Oh,
channels, but I was just like, yeah, it's like dangerous, and then like do not swim
do
or
not
not to,
swim.
just like the messaging was lost and
Right.
almost
That's,
seemed like the opposite. And it was just such a blaring like example of a bad sign. I
yeah.
couldn't help but
Right.
include it.
The one on the bottom I found in a bathroom on the Rappahannock River where it was completely flat. There were no dams. It was class 1, just barely moving. So I don't know. It's like someone found a good graphic that they liked and they posted it. I'll share one just a story of folks who were doing a sign on the Mystic River in Connecticut, and they were asking about how many languages people put their signs, and they were thinking about putting in a plan to do a a message about the dangers of rivers in 23 languages, because they wanted to accommodate all the potential people who do visit their parks. And I don't think that ever happened. I think that one aspect of effective signage is what the Wear It folks at the Wear Your PFD folks have experienced, and that is not necessarily just the graphic, but they have spent millions, literally millions, over the course of decades to promote wearing PFDs because it's so important. So frequency, we don't all have those kind of resources, but frequency is also important. So what the message is, where you put it, how often you put it in front of people. Because they've done stickers, they've done public service announcements, they've done signs at marinas, signs to put on boats, and so forth. So I think that's something to think about, particularly with social media, because you read a message and then it goes away. It's kind of fleeting. So if your message, you could say the same message over and over, you might have to try to repackage your message so that you're saying it slightly differently or putting it in different context. But something like Wear Your PFD, you can't say it enough because it's just so basic and important.
So Allison put in about a webinar we did a couple years ago, and I'll begin it, and then Rita or Allison, if you want to elaborate, that'd be great. It was about water safety signage, or statistics about water safety, and it was from the woman at Park Service who does a lot of research on this, Ina Hosey. That's not her name. That's an NPR person. Ina something. Anyhow, my memory of it, and we could link it to this webinar too, was that statistically, and Charlie, you could verify this or not, young men, age say 18 to 25, something like that, are the most likely to get in trouble, and alcohol is very, very often involved. So
Correct.
And
yeah,
probably not
and just being more aggressive about signage towards that age group and what might get the message across. Being very literal about the deaths, and maybe use information about prior deaths happening at that site. Greta says she's on permanent mute. She says she has Alaska had kids don't float to. So she's got a tool for that. So yeah, do you have the presentation, Lilia, from Ina, or do I need to send it to you?
You send it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I have it. Heisey, I think is her last name, and it was just a really educational. For me doing this, with so many projects, it was really a good education. It's got a lot of resources in it that I hadn't really been aware of before. So I will send that your way.
And Charlie, have you ever tried? Charlie, have you ever tried to do a correlation of whether signage on the river, if there is good signage, might result in less accidents on that stretch?
You're muted, Charlie.
You're still muted. Bummer.
Oh no, you did it before. Keep on trying, Charlie. Oh, there we go.
Okay, I got it. I'm sorry about that. I don't have anything other than anecdotal material, because truthfully, a lot of the accidents happen way away from signs. And most of the stories I get are people walking past signs. And I was trying to look up some pictures I had. There was a dam on the Bow River in Calgary where they not only had extensive signage, both written signs and pictures, danger signs, skull and crossbones, two sets of floats leading people to a portage path, and they did everything that you could have conceivably done. And there was a group that pushed their way through all these signs. And there are several bridges immediately upstream of the dam that they were trying to get people off the river for. And this group passed the bridges, the signs, the buoy lines, went over the dam, and afterwards there were complaints that there weren't any signs written in French. And I think for a lot of us when we get out there, we we're not really focused on looking for that sort of information. One of the things that I ask myself when I'm in unfamiliar place, like say high alpine country in the Sierras, it's like, what sort of stupid thing would a person who knows a lot more about the mountains than I do tell me that I'm doing? Because an awful lot of the accidents, people are blundering into things, and so I'm sure signs help, because you don't hear about the people who they help, the people who go to another section of river, or who are more cautious in some ways. I've certainly got a few from Ohio where people say, yeah, we came to a dam and the girlfriend got out because she didn't want any part of it, and she'd seen materials, but the guy went over and got into real trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Frank Spalding tried to post a sign. It wouldn't post, but it said that they have posted a very, sounds like, blatant list of those people who have been killed along with their ages to strike home that, it's people of that particular demographic that have perished. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I like, Charlie, what you're saying is basically be a bit humble, to not act like you know everything.
Well, that's certainly what you can do as an individual outdoors person. How you get people who come from a civilized area where, except for traffic lights and things, you're really not dealing with warnings and all of a sudden you're in an area where you really have to pay attention. When John Hallis was manager at Ohiopyle State Park, previously, when there'd been a drowning, and this was a drowning of someone who waded in above the falls and was washed over, there was a lot of hand wringing from the state park manager. But John Hallis, who's now director of all state parks in Pennsylvania, said, "Well, this is a real tragedy, and our hearts go out to his family and friends. But Ohiopyle State Park is a wild place, and you have to make good decisions, and some people make better decisions than others," which I think was a very polite way of trying to get people to think that once you step off of the paved roads and the graded paths, you're out in a place where you've really got to pay attention. And I think for a lot of people, shifting gears from the developed park mentality to getting on a river, or rock climbers have the same thing with people starting up a cliff that they thought looked cool, and when they're 50 feet off the deck and scared, it's a lot like being in a river. There was a real tragic thing on the Ohio where this young man went over a very nasty dam in a kayak, and there was a camera that was put there to show weather and water levels. You could just see him spinning and spinning and
Ooh,
spinning around, and he didn't have the experience to paddle the boat in a straight line, and he did this for quite a while before he went over the dam. And I don't think it looked like flat water, but of course it was the Ohio River in the winter, and water was a little high. I I don't know how you get people to shift gears and get their attention. But I think one of the things that would certainly be helpful is that when something does go wrong, that park managers, on the one hand, you don't want to gloat, but on the other hand, you want to say mistakes were made here. No life jacket was worn. They put in at a high flood level. They walked past warning signs. They they walked past closed signs, and just to get across to people that you got to pay attention to this stuff.
right. You know, there have been a couple of really great things in the chat. Um, the life jacket loaner program. There are several around the country, and Amy works where they know how to deal with crowds of people like nobody's business in New Braunfels, Texas.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so that's Amy's territory. That's her river. Um, Amy, if you want to unmute and just talk about your program, but while as I'm thinking about life jacket loaner programs, it's an activity helping people borrow one, but actually the physicalness of it, having a station, seeing other people, borrow one, actually put one on. Amy, maybe you could just talk about, you said that you can't imagine operating without it now, so it's been a successful.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. My camera's not working, so y'all just have to hear me. um, so we have a life jacket. We actually have 2 life jacket loaner stations, and they're both on our city properties. So one unique thing about our operation is that we have a true public entrance and a true public exit that's owned and operated by the city of New Braunfels. And so I know that's not the same for a lot of y'all. So we have I don't know, I call it the life jacket jail. It just looks like a big cage that we put a whole bunch of life jackets in of all different sizes. We created some signage that shows people in like a cartoon form how to put their life jacket on, because shortly after we created the program, we realized that people have no idea how to put on a life jacket, and like people were putting them on like diapers, and people were putting them on without the snaps. And so obviously we don't want to give someone a product and give them a false sense of safety and then them not have it put on correctly. So we have, the station where they can pick a life jacket. We have the sizes. We have the instructions on how to put it on. And then at the exit, we have like a large collection basket that we ask for them to return it in. The first few years by the end of the season, we'd be completely out of life jackets because we weren't getting a lot of returns. But as the years go on, our return rate is getting higher and higher. And I don't have a lot of good reasons why that's happening. We did update signage, and our signage is really key on like borrow, use, return. And so maybe that had some impact on people actually returning them at the end. But I think our city council's thought process was that even if people were taking them, that hopefully they were using them somewhere else. And so it still was for the good of our city for people to have these life jackets. They are funded through our child safety fund, which is something our courts use. And so all the courts, across the nation, if y'all are tied to any kind of court system, you may look into something like that. So we get a very small percentage of the child safety fund when someone pays a fee on top of their fine for a parking ticket or some kind of violation. And so over time, that builds up enough to kind of help fund this program, as well as, the child safety fund funds a lot of other things too, but a very small portion of it goes to life jackets. But I did put in our chat too that we did a really big safety study, I guess 2 years ago in New Braunfels, because we had a lot of momentum with one group of people that wanted to make life jackets mandatory on our rivers in New Braunfels, but it was really focused on children. And so people were in this group of people really wanting to make sure that children were required to wear life jackets. But from a legal perspective, we really didn't get any momentum there because the majority of our drownings and fatalities and accidents are with adults, and most of them are in that demographic y'all talk about, the men 18 to 25. And so legally, if we were going to require anyone to wear life jackets, it would be that demographic, and that's not a very popular stance. So we're going more on volunteer basis right now.
Excellent, thanks. There are a couple of references to signs that say kids don't float.
Mhm.
Pretty graphic.
Yeah. I'd like to ask a question because I see John Newman's on here, and as the former river ranger for the Bridger Teton, there's a known feature on the Bridger Teton called Three Ordeal on the Snake River that at certain water flows is, a pretty nasty feature. Other water flows, it's completely non-existent. And there's the opportunity to put up seasonal signage just above that feature. But it is on a wild and scenic reach and, a highly used reach. So nobody really wants to look at that kind of thing. But we often push back and forth between the forest and river users about, educating people to that. And I think it's an interesting and a challenging topic because, as people said, most people walk right by these signs, but I think there's a place for a seasonal sign above this feature. But the river itself isn't dangerous. It's the user that's the most dangerous element. So I just think it's an interesting dynamic and maybe one there's not a policy for.
So, Jared, your sign would be like a danger portage or watch for rapids ahead, or
Yeah, exactly. Like danger feature on river left, within the next quarter mile. It's around a blind corner, so you just can't see it coming up, and it's killed many people and dumped many people over the years. Just an interesting one.
I want to mention Frank's sign. If you haven't taken a look at it, it's pretty neat because it looks very New England, very serious and very kind of stately, and it's talking about folks who have died on the river. That's so talking about deaths in a way that with that tone, that character is really, I haven't seen anything like that, as opposed to skull and crossbones or big, red letters.
In Ohio State Park in the year 2000, there were 3 fatalities right around Dimple Rapid, and one of them involved a 16-year-old girl who was part of a church group, and that one was especially tragic. The deaths of kids always hit harder, and there were a lot of calls to demolish Dimple Rock, which is the rock that all of these people brushed up against. Some of them were flush drowning. Some of them they spent some time under the rock. Doug Hain, who was the park manager, convened a group of people, and I was fortunate enough to sit in on that. And he eventually decided on an education route. There's a video at the start of the river, which he redid and tightened up to really emphasize the dangers at certain rapids, and particularly at Dimple Rock. He put signs on the river upstream warning of the rock and pointing towards a portage trail. And then a portage trail was built. That one actually wasn't on park grounds. It was owned by the Pennsylvania Conservancy, the folks who owned Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. But he negotiated that trail. And so, and in one sense, it was a fluke. You get a death on the Youghiogheny below the falls in a boat, probably once every 3 to 5 years, but there was this cluster of them, and I think that rather than try and make the whole river safe, which of course you couldn't do, his approach was intensive education, and everybody is taking that rapid more seriously, and there have been no more serious incidents there other than the usual boat flips and swims that occur on any long rapid in the park.
Great, thanks, Charlie. How about if we move to the next topic? We have a couple more topics to go. We're kind of running short on time, but so this is an important part of messaging, having the folks who are volunteering or worker folks who greet guests to have the right messaging prepared for them. And particularly when it's asking people to do something that they weren't planning to do or hadn't thought about it, to deliver that in an effective way. So we have some Partnership Wild Scenic River Stewards, BLM Ranger, interpretive rangers, and then the on the right hand side, she works for the Greenway Foundation. So a teenager who is working as an intern, who is teaching students about, you know, how to do some science projects on rivers, and also teaching them how they should be prepared to recreate on rivers as well. Any good suggestions about how you encourage, support, train your staff, and what things they might be focused on in terms of messaging, or encourage not to do? It's your frontline folks.
Risa, it's
Yeah.
Liz Lacey.
Hi.
Hi. So the Farmington River Stewards have a very good, thorough training. They're usually just seasonal staff, but there's some pretty rigorous training about what kinds of things can happen and how to interact with folks. And they also have a lot of resources given to them for the various situations that can come up, so that they don't have to try to figure things out on their own if it's beyond the scope of what they're trained to do. But yeah, I think a good, thorough understanding of what they can and can't do and where to go beyond what they can do is a really good, important piece of training. And, you know, messaging is also not just speaking and talking to people, but also just sort of sometimes they are being role models. They're actually going out and doing things, picking up trash in front of folks, you know, and just doing various things, doing work days and talking about those work days, and doing other kinds of things that help go beyond just a sign or a typical message.
Are there any resources that come to mind, or points or elements of the training that stand out to you as particularly helpful because they've used it all the time, or that might stand out because at the time you thought it was unusual, but it turned out that worked really well? Anything like that to share?
I'm not sure anything specific. I do know that, you know, we're a partnership river, so that means that we have to work with, we don't have like a park service staff in the area. So these folks are really trained to know the communities and different players in the communities and that sort of thing. So it's like on river and off river kind of resources. So that's kind of a special part of it, knowing who their contacts are on land that they can pull in if need be, and just getting to know property owners around there, knowing different situations arise in different people's properties and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Cool. Frank just put in the chat a sign, 9 tips for when you're going to the swimming hole. Those are great, and using the phrase swimming hole kind of makes it sound like for every person, not something that requires a lot of technique or might be something different, odd or unusual. So that's a messaging thing I think that seems pretty effective. Anyone else? We can hop really quick to the last point, Angie. I think that we're kind of almost at the end of our hour. Yeah, just emergency. And this is something that doesn't seem like should be a message that we tell everybody before they go, but it is so important. Fortunately, people know, 911, but they can be reminded that that's some place to call if if they need it. And for staff understanding where the 911 call goes, because jurisdiction on rivers is often weird. There's maybe two states or two counties or two cities sharing what happens on a river. I live on the Potomac, and if you're in the middle of the river, it might go to Maryland and it might go to Virginia. And that point has been made for decades by the paddlers who often call in a 911 call. But last summer, a young boy drowned, and it took a really long time for 911 to show up because they not only, the other part was she couldn't tell them very easily where she was, and it was bouncing back between two states. So knowing where you are in the river is important, and telling somebody before they get on, and they're an 18-year-old young man, that's kind of a challenging thing, but what might be really important.
In the late 70s, the Park Service, I'm not sure whether it was at Great Falls or on the Maryland side or where, but they led in getting all of the different responders together, which was not only two states, but probably about 6 or 8 different fire companies, got them all together and hammered out beforehand who would respond where first. And that was really a tremendous help, because before there'd be something on the Potomac and you might have like 5 or 6 different groups responding, maybe on different sides of the river, and nobody knew what anybody was doing. But it's like, okay, it's down at Difficult Run. Cabin John will respond, and they'll call if they need anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think that for a river manager, that's a real way that you can get the community together and really hammer out some of these 911 overlaps before they really are needed.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's great. And just one, just in doing a little research, that Rivercom 911, that's 2 counties in Washington State that share their emergency practices. And I'm sure, I don't know if it's just about the money, I'm sure it's because of how the counties are configured. So it seemed reasonable for them to join forces. Well, I think to honor your time, we should probably head towards wrapping up, so we could go just to the next slide and remind folks, if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat or suggestions. If you're interested in that slideshow that Allison mentioned, we can, if it's emailable, we can email it to attendees, no problem. And
Yeah,
then,
I'd also just like to add, Risa, that, and for everyone today, that we've been recording this. You can find it on our video channel along with our other conversations from the river management roundtables. And you can get to that by going to the training center and clicking this big picture, and that takes you to a video channel. And then also I want to remind everyone that we've got a couple river management roundtables coming up. We're doing this, we're meeting on the 2nd Tuesday and the 4th Tuesday. So today's the 2nd Tuesday. So on May 25th, we're going to be talking about, it's a slightly different theme. We're going to be starting the first of a series of workshops intended to help like grow everyone's ability to thrive when working with people different than themselves. And so we've got a fun interactive session planned for May 25th. Hope everyone can join. And that's kind of our gearing up personally themed sessions. So the fourth Tuesday of every month, they're going to be themed around kind of like those the skills that are like really important to everyone's jobs, like communication and things like that. And then on the second Tuesdays, we're going to be dealing with more on the river stuff, such as like today, using different signages and forms of communication. And then on June 8th, we're going to be talking about user capacity, who decides that for your river, what are some challenges, best practices. So just wanted to remind everyone of that.
If you have suggestions of topics you'd like for us to bring up, or maybe look for a speaker or presenter, please let us know. These are meant to be informal, but topics that are like ongoing important topics for you at work. We know you've taken an hour out of your busy days and weeks, so appreciate it. Anything else, Lelia, that I've forgotten? I want to thank Charlie for joining us today.
Yes. I think the next slide might have our contact info. Yep, right there, if you need to reach out to us. But yeah, thank you. And I hope that we'll see you on next web chats. And as Risa said, if you've got burning questions on topics, let us know and try to attack that.
Yeah, and I'm certainly happy to help out any way I can. I've done it for many years. I'm retired now, so I'm not trying to sell you anything like I was where I was 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. Really, really appreciate it.
You all. And hopefully we'll see you soon.